Welcome to this discussion of making a beautiful world. Now, yesterday 30,000 children died of hunger. Today 30,000 people died of hunger. And tomorrow there'll be another 30,000 children mainly dying of hunger. And it's all quite preventable. It's due to just lack of food and water and normal preventable diseases. Do you know what this adds up to every year? It's around about 10 million children dying every year. And it's so easy to solve these problems if we had the will. A lot of people will say it's money that's causing the problem. But did nature create money? No. Who created money? We humans created money. And by God, we've done an awful job. We've created a system that enslaves us and keeps us working day after day after day, without any form of relaxation and thinking about where we are taking civilization. Through the monetary system, we have created companies like Monsanto. Monsanto is going to effectively take over the whole production of the world's seed banks. It creates seeds that will not grow again. So you have to go back to that company to buy more and more seeds. In fact, it's even worse than that. If for some reason Monsanto went broke or couldn't deliver the seeds, or you couldn't afford to buy them, then you would not be able to regrow your seeds. And if you expand this out to millions of people, it would mean that millions and millions of people would die. Now, Monsanto and other corporations are just really the tip of the iceberg. What causes companies like Monsanto to even be in existence? What makes a Microsoft, a Bill Gates produce software that is clearly faulty and do so little to repair it? It's profit motive. Bill Gates, who is involved in Monsanto and all the other giant corporations are in it for a buck. They have to make money. The shareholders expect that they make money. The laws all say that companies are purely in existence to make profit for the shareholders. What a peculiar idea. What about the people that live in the cities? What about humans? What about sustainability? What about the ecology? Why do we have to spend money to make more and more money? Well, a lot of people would say it's greed, but it's not really greed. It's something that has been instilled mainly in Americans, particularly in Americans, and it's the idea that they have to make money. And why do they do that? Well, it goes back to their belief systems. And they believe that they are either going to heaven or hell, and it has been predestined that they're going to do that. They will either go to heaven because God said they would go to heaven, or they'll go to hell. Now, this goes back to John Calvin in 1535. He brought in this concept of predestination. I don't like it because it simply says that you have no free will. predestination isn't not where I want to go at all. I believe that we do have power to create our lives, and I'll explain this later. We can create our lives the way we want to. However, Calvin says that you're predestined to go to heaven or hell. So what happened was that the Calvinists became the Huguenots, who went over to England and became the Pilgrims and settled America. And they believe that they are predestined to go to heaven or hell. Now, being Americans, well, being anyone really, I guess I'd like to know myself, how would you know if you're in the group going to heaven? Well, you know because if you are blessed materially, you're liable to be in the group going to heaven. Oh, this is the way the Americans take it. And some British too. So, if you are poor, sick, or perhaps even black, then you're liable to be going to hell. And this is why Americans don't have any social security system or health care or any of the normal things that Europeans would consider to be just part of their life. Now, in the next few clips that I've extracted off the internet, I'm going to show you versions of capitalism that correlate with what I've just said, and also, but we're going to start off with a lovely little clip from David Suzuki's daughter talking about the environment. And this was recorded in 1992, and I think it is just one of the most lovely videos I've seen in a long time. So let's get started on the journey, enjoy it, sit back, and we'll see if we can make a beautiful world at the end.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization. We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds trying to make a difference. Vanessa Suddy, Morgan Geisler, Michelle Quigg, and me. We've raised all the money to come here ourselves, to come 5,000 miles to tell you adults you must change your ways. Coming up here today, I have no hidden agenda. I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for the countless animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go. I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in our ozone. I am afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. I used to go fishing in Vancouver, my home, with my dad, until just a few years ago we found the fish full of cancers. And now we hear of animals and plants going extinct, every day vanishing forever. In my life, I have dreamt of seeing the great herds of wild animals, jungles and rainforests full of birds and butterflies. But now I wonder if they will even exist for my children to see. Did you have to worry of these things when you were my age? All this is happening before our eyes, and yet we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions. I'm only a child, and I don't have all the solutions. But I want you to realize, neither do you. You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up in a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert. If you don't know how to fix it, Please, stop breaking it. Here, you may be delegates of your government, business people, organizers, reporters, or politicians, but really, your mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, and all of you are someone's child. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all part of a family, 5 billion strong. In fact, 30 million species strong. And borders and governments will never change that. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together and should act as one single world towards one single goal. In my anger, I am not blind, and in my fear, I am not afraid of telling the world how I feel. In my country, we make so much waste. We buy and throw away, buy and throw away, buy and throw away, and yet northern countries will not share with the needy. Even when we have more than enough, we are afraid to share. We are afraid to let go of some of our wealth. In Canada, we live the privileged life, with plenty of food, water, and shelter. We have watches, bicycles, computers, and television sets. The list could go on for 2 days. 2 days ago, here in Brazil, we were shocked when we spent time with some children living on the streets. This is what one child told us. I wish I was rich. And if I were, I would give all the street children food, clothes, medicines, shelter, and love and affection. If a child on the streets who has nothing is willing to share, why are we who have everything still so greedy? I can't stop thinking that these are children my own age, that it makes a tremendous difference where you are born. That I could be one of those children living in the favelas of Rio. I could be a child starving in Somalia, or a victim of war in the Middle East, or a beggar in India. I am only a child, yet I know if all the money spent on war was spent on finding environmental answers, ending poverty, and finding treaties, what a wonderful place this earth would be. At school, even in kindergarten, you teach us how to behave in the world. You teach us not to fight with others, to work things out, to respect others, to clean up our mess, not to hurt other creatures, to share, not be greedy. Then why do you go out and do the things you tell us not to do? Do not forget why you are attending these conferences, who you're doing this for. We are your own children. You are deciding what kind of a world we are growing up in. Parents should be able to comfort their children by saying, everything's going to be all right. It's not the end of the world, and we're doing the best we can. But I don't think you can say that to us anymore. Are we even on your list of priorities? My dad always says, you are what you do, not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night. You grown-ups say you love us, but I challenge you, please, make your actions reflect your words. Thank you.
The next part is from Neale Donald Walsch's book, New Revelations. And it's the first part of the book, and it's where he is talking to God about what must be done to save the planet.
The world is in trouble. Bigger trouble than it has ever been in before. The world is on the brink of disaster. And I'm not talking about natural disaster. I'm talking about man-made calamity.
I know, and you're right.
I mean, humans have had disagreements before, and serious ones. But now our divisions and disagreements can lead not simply to wars, which are bad enough, but to the end of civilization as we know it.
That's correct. You've assessed the situation correctly. You understand the severity of the problem. You simply don't understand the nature of the problem. You don't know what's causing it. So you keep trying to solve it at every level, except the level at which it exists.
Which is?
The level of belief. The problem facing the world today is a spiritual problem. Your ideas about spirituality are killing you. You keep trying to solve the world's problem as if it was a political problem or an economic problem or even a military problem, and it's none of these. It's a spiritual problem, and that is the one problem human beings don't seem to know how to solve.
Okay, so humanity's beliefs about God and life are incomplete. And it's these incomplete understandings that we've been passing on to our children from generation to generation, creating the political, economic, social, and spiritual crisis the world is facing today.
Correct.
And if we can just change these beliefs, we can change all of this.
Yes.
We can end the killing and the suffering.
You can.
We can end the poverty and the desperation.
You can.
We can put a stop to oppression and aggression and repression.
Indeed you can.
That sounds so hopeful. That makes me feel as if we've got a chance.
Oh, you have more than a chance. You and all the children of God have a happy destiny to fulfill. And using the power and the wonder and the glory of all the gifts I have given you, you will fulfill it. Only if you do not use that power, only if you set aside the wonder of who you are and throw away my gifts, can you not fulfill that destiny.
And what you will find is that people's collective beliefs about life pretty much reflect humanity's collective beliefs about God. This is understandable, given what I'm now going to tell you, which is something that some people may not accept.
What's that?
God and life are the same thing. You may call these things by two different names, but they are the same thing. God is what life is, and life is what God is. God is the energy that you call life, and life is the energy that you call God. It is all the same thing. Life is God physicalized.
So if we believe in life, we believe in God. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. You cannot separate God from life, and you cannot separate life from God. You can say you believe in life, but not in God, yet that is like saying you believe in the brain, but not the mind. You can see and touch the brain, so you know it is there. You cannot see or touch the mind, so you're not so sure what that is, or whether it is there or not. The brain is the mind physicalized. Yet it is your mind that allows you to even contemplate your brain. Without your mind, you would not even know that the brain exists. It is exactly the same way with God and life.
You're invited to open yourself to new ideas, new thoughts, and to new revelations as you explore this new spiritual expression.
So we require a complete overhaul, is that it?
If what you choose is what you say you choose, a world living in peace and harmony and in happiness, the answer is yes. You must remodel your world and its society at every level. The universe now invites you to recreate yourselves anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever you held about who you are.
There is famine everywhere on the planet and people are dying. And the gospel people in America are pushing the prosperity gospels as part of the solution. What they're really saying is that the elect will go to heaven and the rest will surely go to hell. This, of course, is not true Christianity, as I understand it anyway. So the author of this clip is not supporting the elect concept at all.
Exciting things in your future. Your future is filled with marked moments of blessing, increase, promotion. God has already ordained before the foundation of the world the right people, the right opportunity, time and chance are coming together for you. Why don't you get your hopes up? Why don't you start believing that no matter what you have or haven't done, that your best days are still out in front of you? And enjoy the peace and multiplied goodness God has in store, especially for you.
How many of you would like to experience the unlimited favor of God? How many of you would like to experience an explosion of God's prosperity?
Section shows a clip of about 10 minutes talking about capitalism, slavery, and how it started from an American point of view. There is also mention of the John Calvin attitude, which I've mentioned before. So again, enjoy this. Thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is Radio Hogan presenting a history of ideas. Today's history will concern itself with capitalism. How did capitalism get started, and how did it become such a predominant success? An economist, and I was trained as an economist, will tell you that wealth is produced and held in three elements: land, labor, and capital. Now, anytime you get any, and wars are often fought to get these various elements for free. Now, first of all, let's get this straight. Capitalism has been around forever, okay? People exchanged things and made things, and it's been going on literally forever. I think what we're interested in today is the period of great trading and industrialization in Europe in the 1500s. Which would be the 16th century. And how did that happen? How did all that wealth get accumulated so quickly? The answer is free labor. Free labor is also called slavery. And the slavery existed in two areas. Number one, there was the slave trade from Africa to the West Indies to take down the sugar cane in order to make molasses and sugar. And sugar became a extremely valuable commodity in, as a lot of these products from the West Indies became very profitable to sell in Europe. And it was all based on free labor. Now that was going on mainly in the English Empire. Okay. Now in the Spanish Empire, you had slavery. The Indians were enslaved and made silver and gold for at that time, a largely silver-based international trading system based in China. So whether it was the Indians that were being mass murdered, some say perhaps 100 million, in the mines and as a general condition of colonial servitude, or whether it was Africans from Africa serving in that sugar rum trading from Africa to the West Indies, to Europe, and back again. So that's my opinion of how capitalism came to be what it is today. The great success, basically slavery. All that money got accumulated. What happened is these people these empire builders, these inner-directed men, copped an attitude. They didn't walk around saying, well, we built our family fortune by mass murdering slaves. Most of the slaves on those slave ships from Africa, they died in the trip over. They were packing them in tighter than you pack in cattle today. No, they cop an attitude. They build these huge mansions, whether it's in the English countryside or on the Herengracht Canal in Amsterdam. Now, the first slaves ever shipped into colonial America were shipped in 1619 by Dutchmen. And when I lived in Amsterdam, I would ask Dutchmen about that, and they would just go, it was just doing business. So it was just doing business according to Dutchmen today. That's the enlightened Dutch view today. So no, people don't confess and say, no, our whole family fortune is based on robbery and the mass murder of slaves. We not only robbed their labor, we robbed their humanity and destroyed them. No such confessions. What you get instead is a haughty attitude of superiority. This was studied by one of the three fathers of sociology, a fellow named Max Weber, back in the 19th century. And Max Weber's theory is known around the world today as the Protestant work ethic. There was a Swiss theologian named John Calvin, probably lived in the 16th century, and he taught a theological theory called predestination, that from the time of birth, the big guy upstairs has determined whether we are going to heaven or hell. Nothing you can do about it, okay? What happened is, in order to prove that God had chosen them to go to heaven, people started buying fancy homes, fancy horses, fancy buggies, fancy whips, okay? And as a show, to show their pecuniary strength, to show how wealthy they were. And by so doing, they were indicating to their neighbors that they were going to heaven. Because anybody who had a fine horse or two and a fine mansion and such, certainly God had chosen that person and his family to go upstairs. So that was Weber's theory, that Calvinism, this idea of predestination, caused people to work very hard in order to prove to their neighbors that they were heading for up top. This is also a basis of capitalism, no question about it. So in addition to the slavery, you had folks in the managerial imperial slave master class that were gaining the psychic benefit of superiority. They were able to show their neighbors they were headed for heaven. Now, back to Calvinism. And Weber calling his theory the Protestant work ethic. Now, in Holland, which is a Calvinist country, they will tell you, often in the form of a joke, that everybody in Holland is a Calvinist, regardless of whether they're Protestant or Catholic or Jewish or Muslim or whatever. So Calvinism, in terms of how it affects a person's behavior, is universal and pertains to everybody, because everybody is trying to impress their neighbor with the idea that they're getting ahead and they're going to heaven. And we see this confirmed in an American economist's work in the 19th century, a gentleman named Thorstein Veblen, and he wrote a book called A Theory of the Leisure Class. And one of the things that this class does to show itself off, to demonstrate that it is the superior class and the class headed for heaven, and he coined the phrase conspicuous consumption. So you have Veblen and Weber on the same wavelength. So that's it. Capitalism was driven by free labor in the form of slavery and an idea, a psychosocial phenomenon where people wish to impress their neighbors with their pecuniary strength. And Weber would make the case that this was derived from Calvinism, which claimed everything in life is predestined by God. So people were eager to show their neighbors that they were predestined to go up top. So those were the driving forces in formulating capitalism and driving it from a pre-Columban or primitive state into an industrial revolution, amassing with some folks amassing great fortunes. Take care, ladies and germs. Have a good day.
Money is debt. This is the title of a 45-minute animated movie put together by a chap called Paul Grigham. It's a wonderful movie. We're just going to have a few minutes of it here, and it will show you how the banks actually make money from thin air. And you can watch the entire movie on the internet or get a copy from me.
Two great mysteries dominate our lives, love and money. What is love is a question that has been endlessly explored in stories, songs, books, movies, and television. But the same cannot be said about the question, what is money? It's not surprising that monetary theory hasn't inspired any blockbuster movies, but it was not even mentioned at the schools most of us attended. For most of us, the question, where does money come from, brings to mind a picture of the mint printing bills and stamping coins. Money, most of us believe, is created by the government. It's true, but only to a point. Those metal and paper symbols of value we usually think of as money are indeed produced by an agency of the federal government called the Mint. But the vast majority of money is not created by the Mint. It is created in huge amounts every day by private corporations known as banks. Most of us believe that banks lend out money that has been entrusted to them by depositors. Easy to picture, but not the truth. In fact, banks create the money they loan, not from the bank's own earnings, not from the money deposited, but directly from the borrower's promise to repay. The borrower's signature on the loan papers is an obligation to pay the bank the amount of the loan plus interest, or lose the house, the car, whatever asset was pledged as collateral. That's a big commitment from the borrower. What does the same signature require of the bank? The bank gets to conjure into existence the amount of the loan and just write it into the borrower's account. Sound far-fetched? Surely that can't be true. But it is. To demonstrate how this miracle of modern banking came about, consider this simple story.
This man probably needs no introduction. JFK. Here he is talking about a conspiracy that nobody is prepared to acknowledge these days. But he knew and he spoke about it. Very interesting clip.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be